You can keep playing. I love that stuff. Do you know Lady Gaga? I'm Alejandro, so you can play that too afterwards. Okay, so we just finished the startup part. Now we're going with a very, very interesting panel. So I'm going to welcome to the stage to talk about how to build startups in the startup nation, in the place where most of the startups, high-end startups, appear, which is Israel. Welcome on the stage to Gustavo Vinacua.
All the rest. Sit here. Hi, hello everyone. I'm Gustavo Vinacua. I'm an entrepreneur. And I'm running BBVA Innovation Centers and Open Innovation activity at BBVA. And this is going to be a very brief discussion around entrepreneurship, but please, we have a BBVA stand upstairs, and there are a few colleagues of mine sharing an interesting digital banking product called Wiso around, so check it out, please. It's going to be very, very interesting, I can promise that. And I'm very happy today to be here sharing this stage with two impressive and top players, I would say, of the entrepreneurship field with incredible track records, Ehud Levy and Ofer Vilenski. Ehud is an entrepreneur and investor with extensive experience in the high-tech arena. He was the first one to invest in Waze. And of course, he has a very deep understanding of the startup ecosystems, and in particular, the one in Israel, of course. And Ofer Vilenski is a serial entrepreneur, a successful serial entrepreneur, I would say. He started his own software development tools company kind of like 20 years ago. Then you created Yango in 2000. You sold it in 2006 to NCS, Cisco, right? And you are now making the internet faster, a lot faster through Hola, which is not Hola, the magazine, you know. It's Hola, a tech startup. So I'm sure that you have a lot more to share on top of this very brief description. So why don't you give us a little bit more around what you did and what you're doing right now? Please, if you want to start, Ehud.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. And it's great to be here again and to see the excitement and the great presentation of the startups. I've been kind of a frequent visitor in Spain for the last maybe 5 years, and it's very pleasing to see from every visit that I come here the level of enthusiasm and the level of professionalism from the entrepreneurs in Spain. I started, just share with you a little bit of my background. Started my career as a computer engineer, then did my MBA in New York. Quickly moved to the, I would say, operational side, working for a few companies. Made a turnaround in one of them with a nice exit, and then became entrepreneur, started my own company in the mobile content space, took it public on the London Stock Exchange, and then we sold the company. Then I went to the other side of the table, to the investor side, joined the venture capital fund, spent there over 7 years. Part of them, as Gustavo mentioned, the first investor in Waze. I was responsible for digital media and doing VC investment in the mobile space mainly. And a few months ago, started investing from a new fund that I started with another partner and affiliated with Canaan Partners from the US. Canaan Partners is a Silicon Valley fund managing $3.5 billion. and we started the fund in Israel together with Lenovo, the computer, the mobile phone player. So that's briefly what my background and the reason I'm here.
Impressive, thank you. So what about you, Ofer?
So I'm actually, I was born in America to Israeli parents, and I've always been doing software as a kid, and it was always my dream to have a startup, to have a software company. And when I was about 14, my parents told me we're moving to Israel, which was very bad news for me because, you know, how am I going to do a software company in the middle of the desert? And it seemed like a very small place that nobody even heard of. So I was very worried about my future. And in Israel, my first job was at a company called Checkpoint. Do you know Checkpoint? So the security company. And so I worked there, and my goal, it was actually a startup. My goal was just to learn as much as I could from somebody else so that I would have a chance of succeeding in a startup. And so I spent 2 years there basically looking at how they do sales, how they do marketing, how they do software development. And after less than 2 years, I was already anxious to start. So we went to my house, me and another person from Checkpoint, and we created these software design tools. And we were profitable. We used that money to fund a new company called Django. Django does software for routers. We sold that company for $107 million in 2006. And then we went on to fund, to start Hola, our current company. We basically in Hola are developing a peer-to-peer network for HTTP. So it's basically supposed to make the internet faster and more open. It was launched a year and a half ago. And surprisingly, what people are doing with it right now is not really accelerating the internet, but actually being able to be more anonymous, to browse the internet as if you're in a different country. And so we've had, in the past year and a half, about 32 million people install the product, and about 100,000 new people every day right now. So this is where we are.
That's amazing. So Israel and Spain, we do have a few features in common in terms of startup ecosystems. So I guess that in Israel, you definitely are a bit ahead in terms of the successful startups coming out and scaling up there. But again, some similarities around reinventing. You started earlier compared with Spain, of course. So that is one of the reasons why they are here. Of course, your introduction serves as the other reason why you're here. You're quite experienced and you have a lot to share. So let me start with one question. Some people say that Spanish entrepreneurs lack of a global ambition. So it is true that in Europe there are important constraints that prevent some entrepreneurs to address the whole continent as a single market. So it's true that in some occasions that is happening, but again about global ambition, how can you share from your experience in Israel around the, let's say, cultural traits that are behind some of these potential issues, and how do you overcome those issues? Any of you?
Okay. First, I don't like generalization. So I saw many entrepreneurs in Spain that are looking global.
Definitely.
Definitely there is a higher percentage of companies, startups that are looking local in the Spanish market. In Israel, we are about 8 million people, so it's a zero local market. Zero local market in terms of geographic area, but also in terms of the language spoken. So if you are a Spanish entrepreneur, it's very tempting to start your startup targeting the local market, 45 million people, And if you expand it a little bit more, then you say it's a 500 million Spanish-speaking people. Which is okay, it's a nice market, but we all know that the bigger exits are coming when you go globally. And going globally meaning English. And I'd say it every time that I come here, and I say it again. English, English, English. This is the key, and nothing against Spanish. I love the language. But I think that this is a key issue. And in Israel, when I communicate with Ofer, we're sending emails to each other, it's in English. Every written communication is done in English in the high-tech industry. We start the company because there is zero local market. Everything is done in international standard, meaning all the agreements, board meetings, documentation, definitely product manual and user interface, everything is done in English. And it's done in English because we immediately, Israeli companies immediately target global markets. Global markets, when I say global, I say, okay, the first target market is the US. And that's where the companies are targeting. It's not only the language, but it's also the activity. When I sit on the board of the companies, there was a point of time where all the CEOs of the companies that I was on the board of relocated to the US. All of them were based in the US. No one stayed in Israel. Maybe it's because they don't like me, but I think another reason is because they like the target market. So this is a key issue. Immediately look out of the country. And my recommendation here for a startup, and I think the guy, Andres, I think from Colombia, the entrepreneur, he mentioned this, and I think this is very true, to look to the US. To look to the US first because, again, English, and English is a common language globally, but most of the customers, and more importantly, also for us as an investor, is the exit. The exit probably, if you want a big exit, probably will come from a US-based company. So I think this is a key issue to think, and it's very tempting to look at the local market because 45 million and maybe 500 million, it's attractive, but I think it's that it will be tougher to do the Spanish or speaking languages, Spanish-speaking countries first and then to the US, then to go immediately. And I think this is a key element for the growth of the company.
I actually think maybe a little bit differently. For me, I always wanted to do a consumer company. Like this is, you know, for a child that wants to do something, he doesn't want to make a technology, he wants to make a product that everybody can use, right? And out of Israel, it seemed to me hopeless. Like we can never create a consumer product because we don't know anything about the target market. And in fact, until several years ago, there were hardly any consumer companies, really good consumer companies that came out of Israel. And now all of a sudden there are. Look at Waze, for example, you know, as a great consumer brand and great consumer product. So what is the difference? And this has to do with Spain too. The difference is that all of a sudden the world is very global because when you create an application, nobody cares where you are. It's not like creating a technology that you have to sell to Intel and you know, they want support. So when Waze created an application, they basically put it out there and then it starts growing in different places. And also for us. And I would say if you create a great application, then it should, I think Spain is a great place to check it out. You got 45 million people. If it's really a great application, it's going to grow really fast in Spain. And then your next step, if you want to keep the growth, is that you have to translate it to English and make it grow out of Spain. So now, you know, Ebola is in the news now. Think of your product as a new virus, better than Ebola, more catchier or more contagious than Ebola. You're sort of creating it in your lab here. You can put it out on the street in Spain. If it's a great virus, it's going to spread. It's a good testing ground, I think. And then you can move on to the next level. So I'm just saying you don't have to start in the US. And actually the way when we started Hola, I mean, when we put it out to the market, we didn't put it out in the US. we made the application. It's in English, okay? But we made the application. We said if it's good, it's going to explode. And we gave it just to like a few of our friends. We're 10 employees. Everybody gave it to 3 friends. And guess what happened? You know? Nobody used it. Like our friends used it and didn't tell anybody because it was so bad. Our application was so bad. So we fixed it, and then we gave it to more friends. And what happened then? Nobody used it. So it's a great way to check that you actually have a really crummy product. And at some point, you know, after many iterations, the product became good, and we went from 100 downloads a day to 40,000 downloads a day on January 24th, 2013, just because the product was good enough. And it spreads very fast all over the world if it's good.
Okay, so this helped me introduce a different question. You're talking about iterating value proposition, which in a way can be, of course, seen as understanding failure in a different way, just as a process of learning, of course. So it's, again, looks like there's an incredible portion of young people in Spain that they still prefer to work for a big company or as civil servants. I have to say that we started BBVA Open Talent back in 2009. It's sort of a mix of a startup competition and an acceleration program to support startups and, of course, stay closer to ideas. But I have to say that we've seen more and more startups each year coming from Spain, for example. So it's true that this is changing in, let's say, the right direction. But aren't these, let's say, cultural traits part of the issue behind not being able to build on top of those, let's say, failures and iterate and use the processes that we know that are working in mature environments like the Valley and yourself at Israel to make sure that we just go, iterate, fix it, and get the right product and able to scale?
So I think everybody hates to fail. It's not a cultural thing. I hate to fail, and I fail every day many times until we find something that works. The thing that maybe can help get people to want to fail more or to agree to fail more, I think maybe is role models. And you know, when big exits happen, like Waze just happened in Israel for, you know, was acquired for $1.3 billion. And all of a sudden, 3, you know, young people make, I don't know how much money, maybe $100 million each of them, and they're all very famous. Guess what the children want to do next? So in Israel, unfortunately, in the late 60s and early 70s, we had some very critical wars, which the country could have disappeared. And so the heroes of those wars were the kids' heroes, and the kids wanted to be generals in the army. So it's all a matter of, when the country was at jeopardy, people wanted to be generals. When people are making $1 billion, young people, then they want to be entrepreneurs. I think it's a role model thing, because everybody hates to fail.
Right.
I think it goes a little bit back when Israel is a country of immigrants from more than 140 countries. And immigrants, when they come to a new territory, to a new land, they have nothing. They don't have real estate. They don't have anything. They don't have relatives here, nothing. And the only thing that you have is yourself. And you need to take risk. You need to start something. You need to become an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter whether it's high-tech or newsstands or whatever. You need to start something. And that's what kind of, I think, that created initially the culture of risk-taking. And risk is taking, and failure is very much accepted because it's the same equation, basically, risk and failure. So this is something that is so much in the culture that is, when you graduate from university, you want immediately to start a startup. You don't have any operational experience, no managerial experience, nothing, but you say, I want to start a startup and to conquer the world, because you don't think about the alternative of failure, because it will be accepted. the family will not look bad. They said, okay, try again. And actually, the CEO that we selected for Waze, it took us a year to find the CEO for the company. We took a CEO that his previous company actually was closed by its investor, okay? And they wrote off the investment. So we took that, we look at the person, not necessarily about the specific success or failure from the previous one.
Okay. You're talking about failure and risk aversion being part of the same equation, and this helps me enter the last question, I guess, which is, when we talk about startups, we talk about startup ecosystems. So, and we call them ecosystems because all the elements, you need all the elements. Each of the elements has its own, let's say, role inside, and you have to have them all if you want the whole system to work. So my take on this is that the most important thing for startup ecosystems is to make sure that the elements interact between them. So the glue of all the successful startup ecosystems is real interaction, collaboration, and density to make sure that that happens. So what would you say about the startup ecosystem back in Israel? Are you managing this way? You have enough of everything? You have scarcity? You have something to share with us?
I think we had a lot of missing elements over time. For instance, as I said, we never had consumer products before. So even just a few years ago, we were missing great product people, great designers, which I'm sure Spain has way more great designers than Israel does. And so we were missing some of these elements. What I found to be very helpful for me was that I tried to actively connect to CEOs that do something which I need to learn about. So you don't need that many. I don't feel that you need such a strong density. It's good, but what I need is actually 2 or 3 CEOs that I can speak with that can help me. So for instance, getting into the consumer market, I use the Waze, the people from Waze, and I'm, friendly with them and sit down and discuss things that they've already learned that I have not. And I'm happy to help the next person in line too. So just getting, tying into 2 or 3 people in your industry. And also, by the way, I travel to the Silicon Valley every few months, and I meet CEOs there, and everybody's very helpful. That's the best way for me.
In giving back, it's kind of the way to give some feedback, look to the whole process, right? Giving back in the cases of
not necessarily because of altruism, but I think it's just interesting. Like for me, it's very interesting to discuss tech with anyone. So
I think this is one part of the ecosystem is the network of the entrepreneurs, the network of the CEO, the senior executive, which kind of have solidarity between each other. If I need to get to Telefonica, and I know that Ofer did a deal with Telefonica in the past, I will approach him and he'll be happy to help me open the door over there and make the introduction to the right people. There is another layer of ecosystem which include basically the 3 main elements of high-tech environment, which is the startups. So we have like about 800 new startups every year, about 5,000 high-tech company in every single point of time. We have the investors, between $1 to $2 billion is investing in the high-tech every year. And, which is not less of importance, is the exit path. So we have most of the Fortune 500 companies have R&D centers in Israel, and many of them are through acquisitions. And some of them are even serial buyers of Israeli companies, 10, 15 companies that they acquired over the years. So when you have all this ecosystem, and on top of it, the government policies that support all this, which give 0 tax to investors in Israel, very easy and clear way of transferring IP from Israel, tax ruling, incentives for startups, and grants for entrepreneurs to start their own companies. All this ecosystem is basically is there on top of the layers of the network of the entrepreneurs. And when we speak with policymakers in other countries, basically we said this is a process. In Israel, it started in the mid-70s, actually. The chief scientist office in Israel started in the mid-70s and to develop the high-tech area. So I think it takes years, and I think that Spain is doing a lot more to do here, but I think that Spain is doing the right moves, basically, to start to build this ecosystem.
Perfect. Thank you. So we still have a few minutes, and we were just sharing before starting that it would be great to have a few questions from the audience. So if you have a mic there, we're going to try to get at least 1 or 2 questions from the audience. And this is an all-men discussion, so it would be great to have a woman a question from a woman, let's say. Someone there? Don't be shy. This is also part of one of the traits that we try to fix in Spain. So ask questions.
Over there, up top.
There? Gracias.
Thank you for improvising.
Yes. Sorry for that.
There we go. Hi, I'm from Smartic, and I just wanted to ask how important you think is the public money that now in Spain we are seeing all these accelerators and hubs, but built basically with public money from the public sector. Do you think is it going anywhere? How is the Israeli experience?
What is the question?
Okay, the public money is very good for generating or starting the snowball effect. It's very important for the public money or the government or the state money basically to be not too much involved. Meaning that I give an example, when Israel started what is called the Yozma program to build the VC industry in Israel, they said, okay, we give money dollar for dollar for each VC that will bring money to Israel from outside. So if international investor put $10 million in a VC fund, the government will put $10 million. But the $10 million of the government will have no rights. So the investors will have the right to buy the government out. So less intervention in the decision-making of the investments, but assist in encourage foreign investors to invest in the country. So because as if you are a big fund of funds from the US, you have the ability to invest wherever part of the world that you want. So to give incentive, financial incentive to invest in Israel was very important, but to keep the government out of the decision-making process. And this is a very, very important thing to do.
Okay, this is a question for Mr. Levy. So you have talked about the important factor of globalization, which I agree. But I want to discuss about localization versus globalization in the sense that you talk about a company that needs to move to the US. And in my case, I'm the founder of a company that has a strong globalization component because it's a mobile app. But the content is localized. And we are fixed to grow first in Spain and Germany. Well, it's about rock and about music and about media and about mobile. So there are huge communities here in Spain and Germany about that. And after that, we pretend to expand by languages. So it's like we thought about it global from the start, but really we are really focused on local and on the strength we have on local, on the language, and the factor that we connect to the community.
Okay. So the issue that you have with your company with global app with local content, there is no more local content than maps, okay? And with Waze, when we started, actually, we were thinking about the same thing, okay? So we have local content, which are the maps that we need to create, the community to create. But of course, we want to go global. So what we did, we just opened it to communities all over the world, basically, each one to start their own mapping. Okay, so they started big maps. But what we did at the same time, we put focus and attention on target markets that we believe are strategic. For example, we thought that starting in the US is very important, but not only in the US, to start in the Valley. So we took dedicated mapping people and start mapping actively, what we did, basically mapping the San Francisco area. So we did local focus on one area, but we opened the platform globally. And we see very interesting stuff going on all over the world, where we see communities that basically build their own activity, and we provided support here and there. But it's very important to decide which are your strategic markets that you want to put active effort and spend money. But at the same time, don't do it serial. I think that you should say, okay, not start, okay, Spain and Germany because it's easier, but say, okay, let's see let's assume that I have the money. You do like that. Okay, let's assume that I have the money. What are my strategic market? And you cannot cover the full US at one time, so start in a specific area, and then it will expand organically in the territory.
Okay. So our time is out, so thank you, Ehud, thank you, Ofer, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this incredible event. Thank you.